What's up? That's cool.
Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week, this 19th of August 2017. Joining me as always, Dan Miller.
Hello.
And Tom McGill.
Good evening.
Myself, Dave Scotland. Every other week, having a look at some of the classic sci-fi and cult films from a bygone time, and then now and then something quite new and recent. And today we're going to have a look at the house that Lucas built Star Wars off, I guess. His first ever foray into motion picture as a director, THX 1138, which started out, I guess, as a student film that later became a fully realised major motion picture. But before we get started, how are we, gentlemen? How's our last fortnight kept us?
Yeah, we're good.
Pretty busy.
I discovered that doing a very quick, short 10-second animation can take 8 hours out of your life. 4 hours last night and 4 hours this morning, and it was supposed to be a 2-hour thing, but there you go.
That's your passion and persistence kicking in there, Tom.
Yeah, and render technical problems.
So to qualify your statement, a 10-second animation that you want to look good can take.
I wanted to look the way it was even cartoony, but yeah, and I'm not as good an animator as I thought I was.
It's difficult to jump back on the bike sometimes with animation. You forget the... I think what you do...
When you get a bit rusty.
And the rust, you try to blow the rust off with complexity. And then after a couple of hours, you realise, oh
No, you got to replace complexity with simplicity.
That's right.
That's the direction.
I was trying to keep a beat. This is animated to music, so I was trying to keep a beat, and I thought, I can do that.
Did you use maths? Did you try and use maths?
I tried to just listen to the sound and try to calculate, a bit of maths, to calculate what frames I should hit. But in the end, I filmed my hand, with my mobile phone, I filmed my hand waving in the beat.
Yeah.
And then used that as my reference.
Yep.
Because that worked better, except the mobile phone was filmed at 30 frames a second, so then I had that problem.
It works better if you can keep the beat as a human, because not all humans can do that.
No.
Some humans hear some beat that is not perceptible to our human ears. And I've seen it.
Not consistent.
Being a DJ, you can see half the dance floor like that. It's like, what song is she dancing to? And it's even magnified even more when it's a female that can't keep the beat, because that's rare as hell. Like it's about as rare as a guy that can. All right, I'm trying to bring up our poster here. What about you, Dan? You said you've had
I had a
busy week.
Crazy week at work, but so I'm trying to relax through computer games. I've been playing.
What have you been playing?
Mech Warrior Online, so stomping around in big robots with laser beams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you guys both get into World of Warships too, a little bit, don't you?
Yeah.
I just installed, and Dan, you can do that too, because I know that your World of Warships is not functioning for some technical problem.
It broke.
They just released it on the mobile phones.
Oh, what?
Warships Blitz.
Wow.
So I've been playing that a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I know that they've pushed, there's a lot of advertising popping up on YouTube at the moment for World of Warships, and there's one particular one I saw the other day where there's this pristine cove with a sunset sort of thing, and there's a little township here or whatever, and
Idyllic.
Yeah, idyllic, and there's this boat, this military-looking boat here, and you can almost hear the is it Fleur de Luz? That do 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 do.
Oh yeah, okay.
And then all of a sudden, rain of terrors coming in on the boat, just like World of Warships sort of thing in your face. So I haven't tried that yet.
It's a really good game.
Yeah, I haven't tried it yet.
I always enjoyed, like, in a first-person shooter, you're a nimble ninja. You can jump out in front of the bad, you jump out around a corner, and you're like oh, there's 12 bad guys around here. I'll just jump back around where I came from. But if you're playing World of Warships and you come steaming out around an island and there's 12 bad guys,
You're committed.
Yes.
You're generally committed from
And-
first second of the game.
And what you said there is, okay, in 30 seconds from now, I will be on the bottom of the
Yes,
ocean.
yep.
Okay, let's go through this. Here comes the fire. Oh, it's raining shells. Awesome.
It's amazing how important brakes are, and you don't really notice how important brakes are until you drive a boat,
Yeah, and you can't sidestep either,
because
of
there's no
course.
brakes.
Yeah.
Right? And even if you put it in full reverse, that momentum moving through the water can take 8 times your body length just to come to a stop.
And the slower you go with the boat, the less steering you have.
Absolutely.
So when you
Yeah.
slow down, you can control
Can't
it
move.
even worse. Yeah.
And even on a houseboat, that can
You
be a
have to
nightmare.
think ahead.
All right, so THX 1138.
Is this the poster?
That's
It's a poster.
that's the
A-
most authentic one that I can find
looks like
from the time.
ad out of Playboy or
It looks-
something.
Yeah, like something out of the newspaper. It's the most awful poster I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
There's a better poster with
And-
them naked.
It's not alone with this film, though. I think there are some things in it that are... I mean, as I said to Tom earlier, when we pick our next movie, we need to go away from experimental 70s films for a couple of films, because I need
For a breather.
a respite, right? Because it gets in the way, in my opinion, of narrative, right? It's tell a yarn, you know what I mean? Like, for me, and I bang on to students about this all the time, that we teach people how to be artists with a lowercase a, and uppercase artists or artistes, they make their money in a very different way, and they make their money through exhibition, through something that is not commercial. Sometimes there's a crossover, but very rarely. And this type of film, to me, leans heavily back the other way, to the artiste.
The word I'm trying to use is artisan.
Yeah.
They are a skilled constructor of things.
Yeah, and the
Well, an artisan is somebody who gets paid to do their work.
Yes, a paid.
Whereas this is not.
And an
Yes.
artiste is somebody who makes stuff that
That's
nobody
right.
understands or likes.
and famously lost money at the it did its ass, essentially. Not very successful
But
at all.
fellow directors and academics loved it. I mean, his student film won all the prizes at
USC. Yeah.
University of Southern California.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he got lots of major prizes, and,
Yeah.
and that's how Francis Ford Coppola sort of found him
Absolutely.
through that student film.
And for Coppola's ill-fated movie production house, American Zoetrope.
Yeah.
And he cashed in on a lot of young, talented, experimental filmmakers of the time. It's a pity it didn't take off, because they were doing some pretty cool films at the time. But also, for Coppola, probably saw some promise in Lucas, because he wore successfully very early in his career both hats. He was a very technical guy, but also understood narrative. He also understood the filmmaking process, and that's rare as hell. Normally you get really narrative people. Spielberg's a good example. Extremely narrative guy, knows how to work with actors. Not very technical. Leaves that up to the technical people. Lucas is similar to Cameron in that way, where he knows how all these things work. He knows how the lights work and the camera and the film stock, and he knows all that stuff.
Wasn't Lucas a car mechanic before?
Originally, he was. He had a big interest in cars. Yeah, racing
Yeah.
cars. You're talking
mechanic.
about. Yeah,
So it has that technical
yeah,
affinity.
Yeah, maybe,
yeah,
I guess.
yep.
The of course Lucas's Achilles heel, and it is also, I believe, true with this, is he can't stop fucking fiddling with it.
You can't leave him alone.
Yeah, just make it.
Yeah.
Just walk away. What is Hitchcock's? With movies that never finished, they're abandoned. But for Lucas, that doesn't hold true. They're never finished.
Could you imagine?
They're just never finished.
Yeah.
He just keeps fiddling with it.
Could you imagine doing what he did to this film? And you can tell the shots, and you can.
Yeah.
Reason why you can tell the shots is that I was alive then, granted, only by months, in that year, but I know the films from that decade. That shit you put back in there cannot have
This
existed.
big establishing shot with 100 cars driving through it.
And it was kind of like, for me, it was summarized in an article I was reading about it, where Lucas had replaced a rat with a CGI mutant scorpion insect.
Yes.
And the question is,
Or was it
why?
Was it the other way around?
No, no,
no,
put
that's the way
CGI.
around. Took out the rat and put in the mutant
Oh, that's
scorpion.
right. No, I saw the scorpion, but the thing that attacked him.
That
Was that
wasn't
in
a-
the
That
original?
also, no,
No, I
because
don't
in the
think it
original
was.
they were also monkeys.
You couldn't get it to work, and they
No,
dumped
they were
the
monkeys,
shot.
and there were people in suits. And then in the director's cut, he replaced them with with real digital monkeys.
Yeah. Well, it was only the Savo that I had a quick look, and I found a video, and I might even play it later with the sound down, and we can judge for ourselves. There were, yes, a lot of replacements of visual effects type shots, establishing shots, matte paintings, that sort of stuff. But there was one shot there where him and the missus are making out, and she's saying that, people are going to see us, and he says, no one will see you. And then you see this really this focus ramping. There's a big long line of guys' faces.
Yeah.
You go down the line, and then you come back up the line.
Yeah.
And right at the very start of that, they all turn and look. In the film, they're all looking the one direction, and we just see this focus getting racked along the faces, and they're looking in that direction. And then the whole time they're having the THX and his wife are having this conversation about looking or whatever.
Conversation, eh?
In the original film, he walks in.
Yeah.
He walks into that room that all those guys are. They all are looking at each other, and they turn and look at him.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time he's having.
Well, no, there was nothing. It had nothing to do with the.
But in the same edit,
right.
in the same edit, so they're having the sex. They're doing the sex.
That's right.
And then
It cuts to
those
him
people, and
walking
he
in
walks
on
into
that
there.
room, and they all turn and look at him.
Mm-hmm.
And in the director's cut, they've taken him out, and then they've instead intercut CCT type television to make you think that all of those people are looking
Watching.
at them.
Yeah.
They weren't doing that in the original.
Yeah.
No one was watching them in the original. So he tampered with the narrative.
Or maybe him walking in was his way of imagining walking in there, being observed, and it was too subtle and people didn't get it, so he made it clearer.
Not good.
I think you cannot easily get your hands at the original version anymore. So
No, he's good at that.
You have the director's
That's true.
cut and you watch it, and that's the only version I ever saw, other than YouTube's on before and after comparisons.
And he's done that with Star Wars as well.
But
you
in this,
can't get your hands on Star Wars.
The difference is, with Star Wars, we know and love the original, and so we hate the changes. With this one, I was watching the director's cut for the first time, and I had when I was watching it, I totally forgot that he had most likely tampered with lots of scenes, and I think, some of these scenes look great. Look at the special effects. Look at those guys blowing up when the flames hit them, and look at and it's only at the very end when the car chase was happening that I realized, oh, hang on, all the cool shots, they must be the new ones. Because I thought, oh man, he had a budget. Good Lord, how could you pull all that stuff off? And then the cars come, and as you said, there's cars driving everywhere, and you go, no.
He may have spent 20 million on it. He may have spent 20 million on the cleanup, on the director's cut, which far exceeds what he spent on the actual original film, even in adjustment terms. So,
but I found they made them better. They didn't make it worse.
No, they didn't make it worse, but at the same time, you feel like you're robbed a little bit. Let me decide what. Don't just fix it and then make that the thing. And I came up with a rule that we should implement, and we should start a movement to get this implemented. Anytime a director goes back in and does something, it then becomes they cannot use the statistics that are tied to the original.
No, of course not.
Like Star Wars.
Yes.
To create a new stem.
Star Wars has been back at the cinemas 3 times, and it just keeps adding to the original things, but they're not the same film, and you should not just take those figures and add them to those over there. So if you want to go back in there, that's a reset.
When
When
you release your baby into the world and people start liking it and they love the film, that gets a fan going, you don't own that film anymore.
That's the argument.
They have fallen in love with the film as it is. And if you go back and change it, not only can you definitely piss people off, but as you said, you can't then call that still the same movie.
Yeah.
It's like that concept of moral rights.
Yes.
That, once it's been set in the culture, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And typically, I think moral rights, a bit like copyright, it's the creator who has moral rights.
Forever. And you can't be traded.
But there might also be another type of right, which is the audience moral right or the fan base moral
I think
right.
you're right. And this is a serious discussion. Like we're sort of tip of the iceberg, really, but this is a very serious discussion that's been raging for the last 3 decades because of Star Wars. The fact that there is not a copy sitting in the archives, the American archives. Despite the fact that they've repeatedly asked for one, he refused to hand one over. And therefore there is no historical document of this film that is a turning point in cinema as we know it. That's wrong. And that as a society is wrong. And when he's sitting there counting his money as a result of coming out of our pockets, we should have a better relationship than that. And you should treat us with a little bit more respect than that. Do whatever you want with it, but don't rob us of the thing that we embrace to make you be able to do that.
It's a weird decision, not sort of acknowledging that heritage or that versioning pipeline even. Yeah, it's a bit weird.
So, quick rundown of the show, what we like to do.
Are you suggesting there should be another number in the title?
Yeah.
Version 2.
THX 1138
V2.
The original title was even longer. It was something Labyrinth, then THX 1138, and then 4EB.
That is the original student film.
Yes.
The student film was something like the Labyrinth and then the THX. What's the trivia on the THX? Can you remember?
It's his telephone number.
Yeah, it's the T and the H and the X are the letters on the first 3 numbers of the telephone number, and then the last 4 numbers are for the rest of the telephone number. So quite literally, it's his San Francisco telephone number.
Although George Lucas says he chose them for aesthetics. They're balanced letters. He chose them because they look good.
I think George likes to put a lot of rhyme and reason to his decisions long after the fact.
Yes, because then towards the end, because in the actual film there are more characters. There's the girl who is L-U-H or something.
Le.
And he's Thux.
Yeah.
No, he's Thex.
Thex.
Yes.
And there's the Blofeld character who is S-E-N.
Yes. And
So
and then there's the other guy is
sin,
Cert.
love,
and
sex.
And sex.
Now, this never has that been the plan originally when he made the student film, where these other 2 characters aren't in there.
Yeah, that's right.
This retrospect fitting is totally apparent.
I think what happens is he's half of his ranch is a vineyard, and I reckon he gets on his wine, gets around with backslappers, like big room full of backslappers,
so that's a great idea,
and
Mr.
starts
Lucas.
to riff off them, you know, and they say, well, we really love how you did this. Oh, well, yes, what I really wanted to do was this, but it led me over here, and he's making it. He's just riffing it off the cuff. He's trumping it. So yes, the show we spoilers, heavy spoilers are about to happen because what we do is we go through the narrative in a somewhat linear format, unless the film doesn't allow us to do that, like the last film, which made it almost impossible to go through in a linear format. Zardos.
That was confusing to listen to. I wasn't on the show,
Mate,
so I
it was
listened
confusing to be here. It was. We were trying to demystify it, and I got a feeling we made it worse.
Your show wasn't confusing, but you can't revisit the film like that. You can't learn about the film
Yeah.
if you go hop left and right.
It was
forward and
crazy.
backwards.
I see this as our copyright protection, is that we don't actually make it any clearer. So it's not like we're copying it.
We've succeeded if we've added nothing.
And there's not really any spoilers because at the end of this, you're only going to be more confused. You're going to have to go and see the original anyway.
Yes, we leave no footprints in the landscape, but spurious content is contained within.
Yes.
So we start to finish, we'll try to keep a linear format. We work through the film and stop along the way on interesting points and plot points and visual effects, you know, creative production, whatever. And Dan is our master of ceremonies, likes to lead us on our journey, and as a result has to usually watch the film more than once. And how would you like to kick us off today, ma'am?
Well, first of all, we might need to do the backstory, which is, have we seen this movie before? And if so, when? And what did you remember about it the very first time you saw it way back when, or whatever?
I've never seen it. I have seen some behind the scenes, or not behind the scenes, but almost like a montage of images and footage embedded in documentaries about Star Wars.
Okay.
When they're talking about Lucas, and
Especially
where he came from.
Silver policeman RoboCop.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the shots I saw were from his student film, because they're talking about his that he's an experimental director, and in a time where experimental directors were needed, and young directors were coming in because the studios were changing hands and being bought up by corporations. So you'd see a lot of footage of this film, but I think a lot of it was from the original film, the student film. But that's it. So the first time I watched this was last night.
Yeah. What about you, Tom?
Similar. I watched it a couple of days ago for the first time ever. I'd heard about it. I'd seen images in documentaries. I knew about it. I used to have a little encyclopedia of I still have it, but it's back home in Germany, of the cinema. And leafing through that, they talk about the most important movies. And this is the encyclopedia of fantasy and science fiction movies. So yeah, that was a page in there on THX.
Yep.
But until a couple of days ago, I had not seen it.
What about you?
Can you open up a new tab and do a just quick Google image search for me? You need to type in the word Paranoia RPG. So a role-playing game called Paranoia.
Oh, I played that.
Have you?
Yeah, back in the early 90s.
All right. So if Paranoia is a role-playing game that I never used to really play much. I'm sure I played it, a few times, but I used to love to collect the books. And I would collect the books and read the books. They were filled with lore and they were filled with stories, and it's friggin' hilarious. It is a dark dystopian future. Now you can see here there's this eyeball with the computer always watching you, right?
Yep.
And these people are all clones and they live inside this underground facility. And for me, this was my only contact with THX, because this role-playing game stuff was driven by THX, Logan's Run, and Barbarella.
Okay.
All kind of smushed together with with a load of extra ideas added into it. And I think you can see some of the themes. It's all the same stuff. Robot, car chases and all of this stuff. So I'd never seen THX, but I'd seen these sort of derivative things that were heavily inspired by it and only exist because of it.
So THX came before this.
This
stuff.
Yeah.
So is this a computer game or
it's a
book based?
Role-playing, like Dungeons and Dragons.
I gotcha.
Tabletop role-playing game.
Yep.
Similar style.
And the artwork is by a lot of it. The old artwork. This artwork up here is by Jim Holloway. Am I right there? Well, anyway, that's a classic picture. Yeah, that's another classic picture from the game, Jim Holloway. And that's you can see the. Anyway, hilarious.
Yep.
All right, so that was my only kind of indirect contact with it. All right, so story. I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about with the story, and half of it I think is themes, and half of it is kind of the narrative. So let's kind of move through the narrative and just sort of see what comes up. But yeah, most of I think the movie is about themes. So where does it start? It starts in a kind of there's a lot of kind of montage stuff going on.
Yeah.
There's lots of the story. Then the story is interspersed with kind of abstract shots of a piece of computer hardware or a
lizard.
or a lizard. yeah. Or just it's very sort of
there it is.
Kubrick-y.
With wings, with wings and antenna now.
Yep. And you know what it reminded me of, and this might help or might not to understand what we mean by these shots. They don't really have any link to the shot that came before it.
No,
in a lot of instances.
Yeah, you've got some narrative little piece.
Yeah, and we're used to seeing it because we see it when somebody learns particles. They come up with an idea to show particles. And sometimes they try to bring a narrative to it, but it's not an easy thing to do. Like it's much easier if you've got this big wide narrative. You've got 400 shots, and that's 322. And to put it in there and to know that it leads out of that shot and into this shot, without any effort, that looks great when you've got the 400 shots, when you've got the whole film. But trying to work out an isolated single shot What I see is a young guy that is really excited about the tech, film stock, lenses, audio, composition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I see. I see a lot of experimentation going on, and I think that's what got him recognised.
Yeah,
Is that
probably.
he's
Yeah,
putting
it's the
this,
visual style.
he's
that
putting,
he,
he's creating this visual
yes.
style, but he's also experimenting with it as he's going as well, and it would later become his style.
It's got some very dramatic cinematography in there.
Yep.
So he sticks the camera in some place, and the actor's just in the bottom corner, and then there's a bunch of action, like this one. The
Yeah.
actor's offset, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of that sort of stuff going on.
Yep.
And yeah, it's very interspersed with these sort of cutaways where you have a part of the story, bop, 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 and then you just have a little shot of one of the robo policemen walking with a child down
yeah.
a corridor.
Yeah.
And then that goes on just for a few seconds, and then you're back to the story. So it's very disjointed in
Yeah.
some ways, and sometimes it's a bit hard to tell. Did time just change there,
Yeah.
or are we still in the same time frame as where we were before? So there's
Yeah.
a lot of that sort of stuff going on.
It'd be like reading a paragraph, and then halfway through the third sentence of a paragraph, it just says, "Orange llamas don't mind because their rice is brown."
Yeah, that's true, but
And it's like, oh, fuck, what did I just read? And I've got to now check. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
That's what it felt like. It's
What-
sort of
what
when the
they're
robot
doing-
starts running into the walls and you feel like...
Yeah. Why did we get shown that?
Is that important? Are we, was he
It's
having
feeling. They want to convey feelings.
No, what I
You
think
should
they're
just not
doing
think about it so
is
much.
that they're building up the lore of the world. The
Okay.
robots are breaking down and they're
Okay.
not very good, and that's what that's trying to tell you. But yeah, like you say, it's like I'm going to tell you a story about something, and
Yeah.
then I'm just going to randomly throw in a
Yeah.
trivia fact. Did you know that the robots don't work very well? Anyway, back to the movie.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, THX is our hero, and he works in a factory with 1,000 other people. It appears that these factories compete with each other.
And how few accidents they can have.
Yeah. And again, this paranoia role-playing game rings in my mind because this is exactly what the game was about. It was about this dark dystopian future where everybody gets killed and recycled and terminated, and it's just this horrible mess. So anyway, yeah.
And what do the factories make?
They make RoboCop.
Which is the guards / police that govern them.
Yes.
Do they govern them or just
No,
are
they keep them calm and help them.
Yeah.
Yes, they keep them calm and help them. They have
Okay.
soothing robotic voices, and they have emotionless faces.
And THX is an operator
Who does very delicate, important work.
behind a blast shield
Yeah.
because of the radiation, yeah?
Because it would appear that these things are, atomic-powered robots.
Yeah.
They have these deadly atomic batteries or something or other that are inside them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's a couple of things that we start getting introduced to. So we get introduced to THX, and two other people also appear in this opening kind of montage of work, and that is... and we're going to have to invent names for him, and I think this is one of the failings of the movie, that you can't have your hero called THX.
Well, the movie is named after him, so that's fine. But I have no idea what Blofeld's name is.
In Paranoia...
Son.
In Paranoia, they copied it, right? So you'd have this 3-letter thing, but you'd always put a human name in front of it. So it'd be Mary THX or John THX 4, right? And so you can call people John or whatever. So anyway, we've got THX, Sen, and the impossible to pronounce, and this is even worse sin, is for the girl he loves, right? It says,
LUH.
Right. All right. So I don't know. And
Who's married to? Who's the partner?
well, no.
Or are they
I
just
think-
They're
roommates?
housemates.
No.
They're roommates.
Just roommates.
Yeah,
Roommates.
yeah.
Okay.
Mates for short, though. They call them each other mates.
They're just meant to be
He's my mate.
housemates. All right. So what's her job and what's Sen's job?
Interesting, if I might digress for the Dan. The original film, they didn't have those names. They just had numbers.
Okay.
So he had 1138, and his roommate has 7117. And in the end, he escapes. Same. Did you see the student film?
No,
Have
I've
you
never
seen
been
it?
able
No.
to see the student film.
It's
no.
about 15 minutes of agony of sound. 15 minutes of sound. It's
Right.
really just
Yeah.
It's the Imperial
Yeah.
probe droid
Okay.
sound
Yeah.
the entire time through. It's just talking and him escaping, and then he escapes to the surface and runs away in the sun, and gets it. At the end when he escapes, there's this voiceover. It's constant voiceover of people hunting him, but they tell his roommate 7117 that 1138 has perished, has killed himself. They don't own up to the fact that he escaped, and that 17117 can now put in an application for a new roommate. He should just just do the normal paperwork, specify what gender you want. But they don't say roommate; they just say mate. Your mate has escaped.
Mm-hmm.
You can now apply for a new mate. Please specify what gender you prefer.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was pretty forthcoming.
Mm.
Are they roommates? Are they mates?
Yeah.
Is there a homosexual undertone in there?
Yeah.
No, hang on. First of all, it's a male-female relationship in the house to start with.
Not in the
Not in
student
the-
film.
oh, right,
I'm talking
sorry,
about the
sorry.
student film.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's interesting because, as will happen later on, it ends up with a male-male relationship sort of in the house there. I don't know. It's a dark dystopian future, right? So it's in the 25th century or something or other in the future. So, and society is breaking down. We can't escape to talk about themes when we're talking about this. So, society is breaking down, and I think that what they're sort of saying is that there's families. There's not families anymore. You don't have families anymore,
Yeah.
but you've still got this kind of vestige of the past where two people would live together in a house, and you still do that. But any other meaning that has or had in the past is not there anymore.
They
And
don't
it's-
touch.
and it's
They don't
frowned
kiss,
upon.
They don't have sex. It's all frowned upon. It's all not only. I think
It's illegal.
it's illegal.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yes.
The police, the RoboCops will get you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Le is a surveillance person,
Mm-hmm.
so she's checking out cameras that are all about the place, and sends her boss, right? And there are cameras in the medical cabinets of everybody's house,
Which are pre-filled with pills.
and everybody's on pills.
And what do those pills do?
They
Sedation.
yes, mind control,
They
sedation.
mollify you.
Yes.
They're the reason. And this is one thing I haven't quite understood. Maybe you're getting to that. But he comes home and puts on a porno hologram and starts masturbating.
With the masturbation machine 2000.
Yes,
Which again wasn't in the original film. That's another later Lucas edition. He needed to make it clearer.
he's having wine one night, and he's like,
need
what?
to have
I've
that-
got a great idea.
Put a wank pump in there.
Love it.
I didn't get this far without being able to ask my artist to model a wank pump.
Yes, I've got a job for you, Gary.
But I mean, that's what I don't
Come into
understand.
my office.
Their feelings are subdued.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to feel love.
Mm.
They're not supposed to feel the desires, right?
Yes.
So what's with the masturbation?
Well, maybe he got it right when he first left it out.
Well, the masturbation scene is in
Oh,
there,
it was
but
in
he's
there.
using the
That's
old-fashioned
right.
way.
Well, the only thing I took from it was how the woman
Oh, there we go.
hologram, which originally wasn't a hologram, wasn't floating his boat, so he had to swap the channels to somebody getting beaten up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I see.
violence was...
I see it all as like the vestige of the past. People used to watch television, and now this is what you do instead. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same. You go home and you do something in front of a screen, and yeah, so it's a bit similar. So that happens in the next kind of story beat. So maybe we should move there. Oh, there's one other thing that we learn about it, and that is that there is the computer that's kind of watching you all the time. Even when he's working, there's people in his ear saying, "Pick up the thing! No, put it down! Put it down!"
But it's not a computer. It's not like Logan's Run where a computer controls everything. It's just humans in their society.
The government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Which is
society.
made comedic almost later when somebody's in training and they're twiddling the knobs and stuff, and the whole time the THX is rolling around and doing weird stuff on the ground, and you can hear the guy sort of training some other guy to keep it under 4.9 and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, there's There's definitely humans in the control room.
And so it's also about money and efficiency as well. And they keep saying, coming over the public government radio that is blaring all the time, is that they talk about consumption is being standardized. So what's your takeaway for what consumption being standardized is?
Well, even Jesus tells him to buy.
Yes.
He? Go buy and be happy.
And and even the fake religion Jesus,
Robo Jesus.
yeah, says, be glad that you have a job and you can consume and buy. Okay, because this is important, because on his way home he does some shopping. What does he buy? Yes, you can't remember.
No.
And this is a fucking important part of the story that's really cool, but you only see it on the fourth time. And that's why these sort of art movies kind of
Get in their own way.
suck a little bit, because and it also might be because it's a student film that you don't. Anyway, he goes and buys a small red cube from a shop that sells blue, yellow, and red cubes.
Not only did I not see the cube, but even now that you tell me that it's important, I still go,
Yes.
where is it important?
He carries it home when he's walking down. Yes, where is it important? He carries it home.
Puts it in what looks like a microwave without a door, right? So puts it in this sort of black hidey hole thing, and then it disappears.
Right, and yes, fail. Total fail on storytelling. Fail.
Yeah.
It's saying we're standardizing consumption, and that means that the society is producing nothing. And then you go home as a religious kind of devotion to consumer capitalism. You purchase a pointless product. You take it home, and then you throw it in the bin. And then the bin man comes and collects all of those, and then they recycle it.
That is, as you said, that is actually important. That is a very important part of the story, but it's so flooded with shots of geckos that
you miss it.
That you miss it. Yeah, I totally missed that.
I 100% missed it.
But I only watched the film once, so there you go.
Yeah. No,
you could have taken anything from it. Like it could have been a battery cell to power the house. It could have been anything. There's no way of knowing what that black box that you just put that made it disappear. You have no idea what that meant.
And they had to build it up as well. When he was watching telly at home, they had to have some of those monks come on and say, consume, and then they also had to have a corridor scene where two people are arguing, and one's, well, not arguing because they're all sedated, but one's saying, I like the blue boxes. I think the blues are best. And the other one's saying, no, I always buy yellows when I'm coming home. I always buy yellows. And he just looks at those guys and walks past with his red box, and then he goes and puts it on the table when he gets home. And then you'd start to understand, well, this is all fucking pointless, And that's what you were trying to, totally missed that one. All right, so then there was the consumption.
That's why the art films work, though, because those people that do get it, they have that
in the
feeling of
school
superiority
and exclusivity.
Exclusivity. Nobody else gets it. I get it, and that's why it's such a genius film.
Exclusivity is a very powerful marketing tool.
Absolutely,
that's 100% true. And remember, as you said, it was most popular in his own damn school. So no doubt he was down the calf saying, I got this red box idea. You wouldn't believe how cool this... And then when they see it, they see one shot of it, and they go, oh, that's that red box.
Absolutely.
Talk about that in the cafeteria.
And that's the artist that has the exhibition, right? Where he stands in front of the piece and he's surrounded by a crowd of champagne sippers.
Yes.
And he tells you what he meant by it. And then all of a sudden they can then relate that in their own way to somebody, to a minion that doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Right? And then because they're part of an exclusive club that understands what this piece is really meant to signify. Instead of the art that we like, which is you look at it, you understand it, you take the point, you move on.
All right, so he goes home.
Doesn't talk to the missus.
So what's going on at home? There's lots of these kind of... There's something going on. What's his missus up to when he goes home and he's watching the telly? And he also actually, when he's on the way home, he goes into a confession booth. And he's got a bit of a concern that he's not feeling quite right.
Yeah, and these is and the wife's acting, and the mate is acting a bit weird.
Yeah, she's acting a bit weird. And I think so he's in that confession booth, and and we also find out that he's talking to this like religious figure. and he's
And the
pouring
religious
out his
figures are
source.
not really listening.
No, it's just a recording.
Right.
He's saying,
Uh-huh.
"Tell me more."
Well, that's great.
Yes, and then it sort of wraps up.
I understand.
Yeah, it wraps up with a. You are part of the, community, and you are the consumer.
Go well.
Yes, go home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Okay. So he goes home. He watches a bit of telly, and so what's his wife up to? His wife's up to something at home.
Do we see it that early? Like, she's messing with his meds.
Yeah, she's taking the pills
She's
away.
messing with his meds.
She's trying to get him off the sedation.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we also find out that he needs the sedation because the sedation is directly related to his ability to handle the nuclear batteries at his workplace.
Well, we'll discuss that when we get to it. But
Mhm.
there's different interpretations.
Yeah, but she wants him off the dumbed down pills.
Because suddenly she's attractive. Once he's no longer taking the pills, she does things to his head. Suddenly she's in there messing around, and he thinks about her.
And I suggest that this was also handled badly in the movie because in the movie, especially if you're watching it the first time, she's going to the medicine cabinet, she gets out the pills, she puts the pills, and then she puts in the pills, and she opens up another box and takes the pills and puts the pills and hands the pills, and you're thinking, okay, that's the pill procedure that we go through on the daily basis as part of the routine. She really had to take out the pills. She had to look much more shifty. She had to go to her pocket and instead of having the pills in a pill container, they had to be in a crumpled up piece of paper or underneath in her shoe or something or other, so that we knew that this was not normal.
It was a trade federation blockade
Tax
moment.
embargo.
Yeah.
All right, so she's swapping the pills. So she's given him essentially like placebos or something or other. So he's not getting his sedation levels, and he's starting to feel like a regular human, and that's why he was sick in the confession booth, and he wasn't feeling quite right. All right, so what happens next? They essentially, she says that she loves him, basically, and they're starting to feel that they're in love, right? And that love is also illegal.
Yeah.
And so, they have a bit of a deep and meaningful, and that's where that bit you were talking about when they said, are they watching us? They kind of are watching him, I suppose.
Well, in the director's cut, they're definitely watching. Someone's watching them. I believe the person that was watching them was the boss, the
Sen.
Sen.
Yeah, it seemed to be Sen, and maybe he's just a bit of a nosy Parker. Anyway, it was certainly him. All right, so so Sen is definitely watching them.
Yeah.
And he knows that their drugs are being reduced and that this is a crime and that they're having sex and falling in love and all of this type of stuff. So the next story beat is that it's kind of like the next day and they go back to work and Lua, so that's the girlfriend, she's getting she has to go and see her boss because she's getting a change in her work pattern or something or other. And then we find out that after he gets back home from work that Lua's been moved out of the flat.
Yep.
And it's Sen...
who was the boss that she had to go and see.
Yes. Is now moving into the flat.
Yeah.
Is that what you took away from it?
I took that from it. I took that Sen had a thing for THX and wanted to be his new mate.
But he's good with computers. He rewrites codes and he gets into systems. So is he even her boss, or has he put himself into that
He's
position?
just a nosy Parker who's just hanging around.
Does he
was
change the
never
system
kind
to-
of really explained. I thought we got a lot of good stuff about his character, about how he was a wheeler and a dealer, but he's also part of the system, but he likes manipulating inside the system and organising things.
Now, if we jump forward, because she gets pregnant at some point.
Yeah,
Well, we just had the sex.
That's coming up.
But that's later in prison.
No.
That's later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she tells THX when they're not roommates.
When he's in jail, isn't it? When she comes to him then?
She comes to him when they're in the white jail
The
prison.
white jail prison, yeah.
Later on. That's where that is
The
revealed.
white room.
That's right.
All right. So he's now kind of lost his girlfriend.
Yep.
He also, so now THX finds out that Sen is manipulating things and changing people's work routines and moving people's houses around.
Mm-hmm.
And then THX reports Sen in one of these
Which
sort
looks
of
like
confession booth.
It's a heavy part of this. Uses a Bundy card.
Yeah, a punch
Yeah,
card
it's a punch
kind of thing.
card.
It's a punch card thing.
It's the 70s, man. Punch cards with
And Lucas, being Lucas, right? The original has a top-down view of him filling the card out.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucas put in the director's cut a digital box thing with the camera on the bottom of it that sits above the thing that he was filling out the punch card.
Mm-hmm.
So he wouldn't let the audience just believe that somehow there was a camera up there that we didn't see, right? He had to put the thing in the shot and justify the camera angle in there.
Which is odd because of his artistic, his composition and the white spaces and the negative space.
Exactly.
And then he fills it in
Yeah.
same with this shot there. He fills it in with a machine.
Yeah.
The original composition gets destroyed.
So it's a heavy part of their society.
This gold stuff as well is also a bit of a complaint that people were making, that he's got all this kind of very stark white stuff, and then in the director's cut he starts putting colour washes over it, which is now starting to dilute the theme of that sort of stark,
pristine,
colourless, empty world.
And in the original, the robots that he builds, like in the film that we saw, the director's cut, they are full robots and they build on the head. But in the original film, that's all they had was a head.
It's just a head.
There's just a head there where they would, put screws inside.
Yeah.
So this dobbing other people in, that's a heavy part of this society, yeah?
Yeah, and
That's how they keep control.
yeah, and actually, that's...
So it's North Korea.
Yes, I was watching, just a little tangent here, watching somebody who was talking about living in communist Romania, I think it was, or Germany, Latvia, or somewhere. And he says, the secret police didn't control everybody. It was your neighbour who controlled you. And that if you did something, because everybody would get paid, there would be free gifts for the best citizens, and the best citizens would be the ones peeking over the fence, looking between the curtains, saying, "I think he was watching American TV."
Dobbing a mate.
So you can get some extra onions.
Extra onion for you, good citizen. And that's what kept people under control.
Yeah, and it really cashes in on that voyeuristic, condition that humans have. It plays to the curiosity as well. That got to have a look.
All right, so our next story beat is THX is back at work.
Yep.
And we're going to have a OH&S
situation.
Because
he's off his meds, and he doesn't know he's off his meds.
So he's off his meds, and he's trying to do this delicate work.
Yeah.
Now, and then there's
one of the most ridiculous control room decisions of all time. While he's got the nuclear battery in the tweezers, someone decided to shut his brain down.
Turn his brain off.
Reboot him.
Yes, that was a big mistake. So
he saved the day, though. He saved everybody's lives.
They turned him back on.
Managed to turn him back on.
Yeah, they turned him back on. So he's working away. They're monitoring his stress levels or something or other, and they turn him off.
Which results in him being taken away.
Yes. So he then has to go to essentially court.
Yep.
Right. And that's kind of where we see a little bit more about the world, because we'd only seen there appears to be sort of higher level judges,
probably on less meds.
Possibly on less meds. We were talking. I also remember from one of the news stories, he was talking about like elected officials or officials being let go or going back to. So there's a sort of a strata in the society, and So he gets goes to a court case, and it seems that there's a prosecutor and a defender.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the prosecutor and defender's case?
The prosecutor wants death, wants termination.
And what's the charge? bonking and not taking your drugs. Yep.
I can't remember. Because am I right in thinking that whole conversation was over the top of one another? Like they were literally
and
just talking over like one was talking, the other one was talking straight over the top.
Yeah, it was kind of in that sort of montagey sort of.
Sen was also there. Was getting his sentence as well, wasn't he?
Was he?
For being, he was dubbed in and.
Oh, because he dubbed him in.
Yeah,
that's right.
He dubbed him in earlier. I don't think Sen was there. I couldn't remember. Well, I can't remember Sen was there.
No, I think he just turned up when he goes
later.
into. Is it a prison or?
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get there because that's going to get. That's where things are going to get weird.
Okay, so what was the?
So the charge was that he wasn't taking his meds and that he was having illegal sex activities. And the defense was, don't kill him because that's inefficient. You know, it's a waste of resources.
Yeah.
So
dead people can't purchase.
Yeah, that's right. So the next story beat I've got here is the beatings will continue until morale improves. So they take him to a sort of a medical horror room and they torment him by sticking tubes up his nose and, you know, things in his ears and all of that sort of stuff. And then they have that scene where he's connected up with all of these wires, and then there's two interns trying to operate some machinery that makes him go bananas and like scream and yell
with like a graphic overlay over the top, and you can see these little numbers moving up and down. And
they're saying, does this one go to 11? Yes, this one goes to 11. Well, try this one.
The whole time in the background, Robert Duvall's like jerking around on the floor in some white room.
Yeah, going bananas, some sort of electrical torment and all of that stuff. And then the next story beat is that he ends up in prison.
Now, it is a prison or a nut house?
Well, that's a good question.
I got the sense it was a nut house, but then it's hard to know because they're all walking around in white already, and they're in a big white void.
Probably one and the same.
Yeah, it
is probably one and the same because remember we're talking about this sort of dystopian future where everybody's under mind controlled drugs, and so everybody's just these sort of zombies. So anybody who's got any flair at all ends up in one of these places as a crazy person.
Yeah.
So they're in a they're in a prison. He gets put in the prison by himself is where it starts off, and the prison is just a big white empty void that goes on apparently for infinity.
Yeah.
Now, what the actual fuck is going on?
Yeah, exactly.
On an overcrowded, overpopulated, very dense city.
Exactly.
Yes.
Where when you step on the road, which they do later when they get out again, there's people shoulder on shoulder, elbow to elbow.
Yeah.
And that's because they have to have room for all these prisoners in the 2 square kilometer cells.
Yeah, that's right.
And you didn't know from one minute to the next in those big white voids whether the whole thing is real. Whether is this manufactured? Are they creating this in his mind? And when it's not clearly defined, then that doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
I need to know, is that a mechanism? You know, you got to... And if you come out the other end of it and you don't explain it, then the only thing I can be left with is someone had to create a 40-kilometre white void, because they run across this thing and it takes...
Yeah, and it takes
forever.
They take food so that they can go from one place to wherever in this gigantic void.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any sense. It's like, you know... If you had a Star Wars, pick some other movie, you know, and then halfway through, you know, a talking duck just arrives, and you know, it's just this normal thing about relationships and shopping and stuff, and then the talking duck, and you're like, what? Yeah. Talking duck?
Yeah.
If they had put the talking duck at the start, you would have been like, oh, okay, talking duck, cool, that's cool. But now, so they don't explain it, and they could have explained it. They could have just had him in a cell, going bananas, with his head stuck with electrodes and he pumped up on drugs, and then we go back to the wide expanse.
The whole time we've got overlay of audio, and people are in control rooms making statements and comments, and they're usually nondescript shit. Like it's usually stuff that, you know, is not pertinent to what's going on. But they could have easily melded a little bit of that in there. You know,
just to throw it in,
helped the audience through the process. And that comes back to that art thing again.
And again,
if it's obvious, it's not art. You know what I mean? Like it has to be, you've got to go searching. You've got to find the meaning in it.
Yeah, and you only know the meaning because you hung out with George Lucas in the cafeteria at the university where he made it, and he told you before the premiere
Like the
when
boxes,
you were in the
like
thing.
the coloured boxes.
Yeah.
Like I would never have, until you mentioned it, I had no
No.
idea what was going on other than confusion in my mind.
All right, so this is the what I've called here story beat number 1. This is White Prison number 1. Because he's in this big white void that we can't explain as an audience, and then something even weirder turns up. His girlfriend turns up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Visiting time, I guess.
because that happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and it does, to me, it doesn't make so much sense in the narrative. He's just been punished and he's put in jail. Okay, so it's a jail, a big white empty jail, and then he gets conjugal rights and.
Yeah. And turns up just
But
enough.
you can't be getting conjugal rights because it's illegal to have sex.
That's
in that
right.
thing.
That's right. And
I thought it was
and
just
they
visiting
don't have
time, and
rights
they
at
can
all
keep
anyway.
going.
Like there's no rights.
No. So anyway, his girlfriend turns up and they have sex.
Yeah.
And she tells him she's pregnant.
Yep.
And then the cops turn up and beat the shit out of him.
And beat him up. Yep.
All right.
There's
So
a bit
that
of
just happened.
bit of torture went on earlier. Like when he first got in there was a lot of poking him with.
That was the
with
interns with
big
the
sticks. No, the big stick pokey. There
Oh,
was,
yeah, there
and
might have
then
been a bit of
ran
that.
him around in circles and stuff. So there was a bit of torture early on.
Okay, so after that, we go into the prison story beat number 2.
Yeah.
And that's where he's in the big white void, except he's not alone anymore.
That's right, he's in-
There's a couple of couches, and there's a few other lunatics in there with him,
Yep.
including Sen.
Yep.
And so they have a bit of a discussion about things, and we see a few people being crazy.
Yep.
I liked Sen. I thought he was one of the better characters in there.
He was good.
He reminds me of reminds me of something that I can't remember.
I got the sense Sen wasn't medicated. Like he wasn't a
That's
drone sort of worker. You know what I mean?
He reminds me of the guy. Yes, I don't know. That's actually a bit of a weird thing. You know, he did seem a lot more animated than the other people,
And, yeah,
and
a lot of the,
sprightly and
A lot of the backstory and who's who and who's where and I was behind this and I did that and whatever. Like it was all coming from him. It wasn't the Robert Duvall character. Just really didn't add a lot of understanding. He was just constantly confused.
yeah. And I'd kind of like to have seen Sen as the main character, who was in the society and he was a wheeler and dealer, but he was not really a rebel exactly, but he was a bit of a quirky character who was trying to carve a bit of a niche for himself. What he reminded me of was War of the Worlds. Remember the guy, and I don't know his name, the guy in War of the Worlds who's going to rebuild society.
The artilleryman.
The artilleryman, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And he's going to dig a thing under the ground, and there's going to be trains under the ground, and they're going to play cricket, and he paints this giant picture of this beautiful utopia, but it's just like him and a shovel, and it's like you got no
2 foot
hope.
hole that he's got, yeah.
You got no hope, buddy. So yeah, and that's how I saw Sen. All right, so they decide. Oh, stupid. Updates. Every time I come here, updates. They decide that they're going to escape. And how do you escape from a prison void that's a big empty void?
You just run,
You
apparently.
just pick a direction and you just
Go out the door.
Go, point your nose and run.
yeah. So they take some food with them,
Yep.
and then they walk.
Yep.
And I don't know, time passes, and they walk and they walk and they walk and they walk, and they don't find anything until they find another dude. And this is where weird just gets strange.
Weird goes up to 11, doesn't it? Because in his opening statement, he declares he's a hologram.
Yes. So they meet a new guy, and his name is Srt, and SRT.
Yep.
And yeah, he declares that he's a hologram.
Well, somebody's a baker, somebody else is a quantity surveyor, and he's a hologram. And that's his job. His job is being a hologram.
But
So-
he actually says, and so
Well, you say, I'm a teacher.
yeah. I imagine in my best interpretation of what this story could/should be is that he's actually an actor
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
on telly.
Well, telly's not telly anymore. It's a holographic thing. And so when you say I'm a hologram, I'm a TV program.
Yeah, that's right. I work on the telly.
Like there was the
as a
dancing
hologram.
chick, and then there was the guy beating up the other guy. That they were holograms as well. but probably actors.
Oh, the beating up was staged? No,
Well,
it was real
I don't know.
violence.
I don't
Come
know.
on.
It could have been the news. Yeah, I don't know.
I can't think of it at the moment, but I think I vaguely remember that there was some later statement that he said that might have meant that he was actually a hologram.
That's how it comes across. He keeps
Yeah.
just saying, "I am a hologram," and he is the hologram.
Like he's
I
made
got
out
that-
of
But I
light, and
thought-
he's actually.
I got that impression as well.
But I interpreted it in my mind that just means he's talking about his job.
Yes, so I was doing that paint over as well to
Yeah.
just like.
Just shut it out. No. It's just,
Yes.
Someone.
I'll be making sense of this movie. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's right.
Someone and I presume it may actually be Lucas that took credit for the fact that Lucas, at that point in time, there were no such things as TV channels that were dedicated to one thing.
Okay.
Whereas Lucas had created a violence channel,
Oh, okay.
a sex
All right.
channel.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody credited him with like he was the first person to.
He prophesized this.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I think it was Lucas. I can't prove that, but
All right, and then they escape from the empty void by finding a black dot, and it turns out that's the way out.
yes, that's right. That's after they've walked for days in a certain direction. They meet a guy. The guy says, "No, the way out is that way," and points back where they came.
And they turn around.
And they turned around and he said, "Look, just look."
There's
And
a black dot thing.
they must
that-
have looked harder.
yeah.
Maybe they walked past the black dot.
Maybe the escape was in their hearts or
And-
something or
and
other.
what is-
or I
and what does the
don't
black
know.
dot lead to?
It leads to a cupboard.
A door,
Yeah.
a cupboard door.
It's like the White Lion, the Witch, and the wardrobe or something or other.
Yep.
Leads to a cupboard, and that leads to the busiest part of the shopping mall that there is.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
thousands of people all moving compressed up corridors and things like that.
Yeah.
And they actually go out into that, and Sen gets lost.
Yes. So they get out of there, and I'd like to add, Sen gets lost for no reason at all.
Yeah, yeah. He just finds himself lonely sitting on a bench at some point.
So it's all interspersed, right? But let's take Sen's story.
Yeah,
He goes out with those other two guys.
And he
He
sees
gets-
little boys, and he wants to get close to the little boys.
that's what I took away from it.
Yeah.
I took that away from it, and it's one of the reasons why he was maybe that's why he was in the prison.
Donald Pleasance is just bloody awesome as
Yeah.
being creepy.
He's creep
Best
factor
creepy
11.
guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, he was the standout character and actor in the
Oh yeah,
whole
I
thing.
think
for
so
sure,
too, yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
He gets separated from the other people, from the other two, from our heroes. He then catches a tram, to the last stop on the tram line.
Yeah.
Then he gets out of the tram,
Yeah.
and then he keeps walking north. And now there's nobody around. There's a dark corridor, and then he sees there's water dripping, and it's like nobody's been cleaning the place, and it's not maintained, and there's arcing electricity. And he just keeps walking, and it seems like he's still trying to escape. Oh, we forgot to mention that everybody's under a dome, and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to escape out of this dome, right?
Yeah, I missed the dome.
It's underground. The whole society is underground.
That was way back. Again, of course you missed it, and we even missed it in describing because it's such a tiny point. Is that when they were back in their home and Look was there, and she was saying, oh, I love you and all of this stuff, and if you go back on your meds, you might forget that you love me, right? And then she says, "Let's escape out of the dome,"
Out of the dome.
and that's kind of only mentioned once. So anyway. Sen appears to be still on that mission.
Yep.
But we're now on a separate story without our hero. And he walks, and it's getting muddy and drippy. And this is where he sees the CGI scorpion on the ground. And then he turns around and he walks back.
Yeah. Well, he runs back to get it back on the train before it takes off because the train. The message that came over the speakers on the train was, "This is the last stop. We will then return to
Back where you came from.
back to where they came from." And he wanted to. I took that as he didn't want to miss his opportunity to go back where he came from.
And that's, I think, what he said. He says, I can still be good and I can still work within the system and I can... So this is a bit weird. It's like, going off on this story tangent and then it's like, Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah. And he caused it all. Like a lot of it. Yes, granted, she was playing with the meds for THX, but a lot of the trouble was caused by him.
I think he can play the system though. He can probably have more of a fulfilled life going back and keep playing the system and putting himself into different jobs because he doesn't have.
And that's why really he has to be the main character, because he's the one that comes to the... Just before we build on that, there's a couple of other things that he does, is that he goes into the TV studio temple and he meets the image of God.
Yes. Ah, yeah,
right. And with the monks.
Clobbers the monk.
Yeah, and he clobbers the monk. So if you add that into the theme, he goes all the way down the end of the line and he finds God at the end of the line, and then he kicks God's ass.
Yeah.
And then the next bit that happens is that he then goes and finds the children.
I think you're doing what many people do, is attributing more underlying story into a George Lucas film that he ever anticipated.
I'm doing my best for you, George, is what I'm thinking.
Trade blockades.
Yeah.
I'll just keep throwing it out there until you recognise that sometimes he departs common sense and narrative.
But I think he kind of did, because all of that stuff, and then he finds the kids and he talks to some kids, and the kids are just getting all drugged up for their first drug-induced, whatever it is, to get them all sedated.
That's lessons. They're taking lessons.
That's right.
Yes, they're taking lessons. They've got economics in a bottle that's going into their arms or something or other. And then he gets arrested by the cops. So that's the end of Sen. And, like I was saying before, I thought he had the better story arc, because he was the guy that seemed to be able to have the revelation that this is all bullshit, you know. It's like, you fools, you blew it all up, this is all craziness.
You knew he was up to no good, but he did have a greater understanding of what was going on.
So that's his kind of storyline. So now we're down to THX and Cert. So they have been now separated by Sen. Sen goes off on his little sort of dead-end adventure. And then THX and Cert go off on a bit of a run, and they find little different places inside of the big, place that they live. They find a computer room, and they find the morgue where all the dead bodies go. And
I think they even find... Doesn't Cert at some point look for La?
La, yes.
And then finds a test tube baby inside a bottle
with her name on it.
With her name on it. Yeah.
So she's either being reconstituted or she's been killed and her name is being reused.
What did you take it from that? I have no idea. Either she was born again, or they'd taken the baby and renamed it to.
That's what I took.
For efficiency.
She was dissolved and killed off, and then they took the baby and put the new label on, because the label had just become available.
Yeah,
because
it's efficient.
Like Red 5.
Yeah. My thought was she was being cloned. The original had been killed, or the clone 12 had been killed, and they're making clone 13.
A new one. Yeah.
I don't know.
Because at the same time, I remember I didn't get much of a sense that he was to, like, whether it was an acting decision or it was in the script, but there didn't seem to be a lot of reaction from him when he found out that that's the missus in the bottle.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Whether he was confused, didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah, our hero's motivations, because that is another point. Did he deeply love her? What was causing him to act?
Because you put that into a script of any description, that male finds out girlfriend is now that fetus in that bottle over there. You expect something, like normal writers and directors use that moment to show you something about the character, to either progress it forward, move it left, right, whatever. And there was nothing. There was nothing there. He was already... When was the decision for them, like... Whose decision was it to run originally from the...
It was hers. Well, she mentioned it.
No, I mean, back in the prison.
Sen.
Okay, so
it's a bit hard. They kind of both arrived at the decision.
Robert Duvall's character is passive for the entire film. He just walks along. She takes him off his meds, and he develops a feeling, and then they have the sex. But he's just about putting batteries into robots and masturbating when he gets home.
Yeah. Perhaps an improved story idea would have been a sort of an apotheosis, where the guy dies, but you do it in a his love dies. So he's on drugs, doesn't love the girlfriend, stops taking drugs, falls in love with the girlfriend.
Yep.
The state finds out, and they say, well, you've got to go back on your drugs. And the girlfriend says, well, you won't love me anymore if you go back on your drugs. So they pump him up with the drugs. And while he's strapped to the chair with all of the drugs, he somehow fights inside of himself to still remember that he still loves his girlfriend. And that's his overcoming the thing. And so even though he's on the drugs, he's still... But anyway, we kind of didn't get
That's
that type
a bit
of
of
stuff.
a problem I had with the end of the film, because he escapes, right, into the world.
Yeah.
But throughout the entire film, I've learned that he's pretty useless guy. I mean, he's
Oh,
not
he'll be dead
he's not a
within a week.
hero.
Yeah.
He'd be
He's not
dead
going to
within
go
a
out
week.
there and start a new society
Yeah.
and bring the world to the light. No.
As we've said, in the 12, the journey of the hero, he has to do something for us. Otherwise, he's not a hero.
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
villain if
Yeah.
he's doing stuff for just himself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so bringing the story to a conclusion, our buddy Cert seems to be pretty
The
capable.
shortest car chase ever.
Hilarious. I was watching it and I thought to myself, and what we're talking about is that he desperately tried to start this car. Like they both got in a car each, right?
And firstly, our
Instead
heroes...
of getting in the same car, which might have been easier, they got in a car each, and THX starts it up and drives off, and then for about 5 minutes, Cert, who was so big, he's a massive man,
He squeezed into this
he
car.
really struggled to get into this car. When we finally get in, he didn't know what to do. He didn't know, so he's pushing everything. And in the meantime, the police drones, robots are marching towards him down the corridor.
Meandering, I think.
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that
And he
word?
finally starts the thing up, floors it 3.5 meters into a post, and totals it.
Massive
into a pole.
collision.
Just totals it. And I remember thinking, I wonder whether that was an accident and they just put it in there because they didn't have any other cars to use.
It's a take, I guess.
Because it was so bizarre. Like it was
Yeah.
really bizarre.
Yeah.
But appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. It was one of those offbeat kind of random things that you don't expect.
Yeah.
But the other strange thing about it, and this is again a bit of a slight against our hero THX says, oh look, 2 race cars.
Yeah.
I jumps in mine. Boom!
Go on.
He's gone. It's like, but
The other guy didn't know how to start it. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe you're right. Maybe he wasn't the hero. He might have been the villain the whole time.
So to bring it to a conclusion, there's a bit of a car chase and
Yeah.
some excitement, and then
And a stunt. Like that stunt has got to go down as one of the all-time greatest motorbike
Yeah.
stunts.
That looks fantastic.
It wasn't a ragdoll; it was a real guy, and famously, it looks so real and so dangerous, and even his minders and handlers and the fellow stuntmen and everybody thought he was dead. So they ran on to the.
You watch the film, you think that guy's dead.
and
Motorcycle
they all
lands
run on
him.
there. Only to find that he's barking, screaming at him, saying, "You've probably ruined the shot," because they ran on. But he walked away. He didn't have a problem at all.
yeah.
It was a real stunt. He literally hit painting scaffold at full pace on a motorbike, flipped over the handlebars, rolled at about 80 kilometres an hour into a wall, ricocheted off the wall into a parked car.
And then the motorcycle landed on him.
And then the motorcycle slid into him. Yeah. Crazy.
Yes, and he walked away, and I'm sure he said, "Anyway, just make sure you get these shots and don't. I'm going to go to my trailer."
Love it. And then we had this weird. So obviously the car's buggered, so he's running down the tunnel now. He's to try to escape, and we see this sequence where he's walking up a ladder up this massive, big tall stack. And I remember looking at it thinking, and when you spend enough time around animation, you start to notice things. And I remember looking at this guy going, that's the weirdest ladder climbing movement I've ever seen in my life. And sure enough, in the trivia notes I learnt today, that was all lying down. That was rebar on the floor, and he was doing this crawling thing.
Also, this supposedly vertical column that he climbs up actually has a curve to it.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is odd as well. But during the entire police chase, we keep cutting back to the control room, who gives offers, and you can slowly hear how the costs go up, and they keep referring to, we'll
right.
do this. It's still within our budget.
That's right. So it's still about the chase has to be efficient, and if they get to a point where they've spent too much money, and so they recall the cops.
They recall the cops. They're basically climbing up after the ladder after him when they get the call that you're just gone 6% over budget. You have to go back, and the cops, diligent as they are,
within meters,
they've got to give one last ditch effort, saying, "We have to go back now.
Please give yourself up.
Please
this
come
is the
back to
last chance."
We would like to take you with you, though, sir. Well, we only want your best.
And he says, "No."
Yeah. Now he climbs out the top, and we get the Francis Ford Coppola effect, shall we call it?
The long lens.
Well, it's a long lens. It's a sun on the horizon, sunset on the horizon, and a silhouetted something, which is him.
Yep.
Sort of standing and
Before it.
pretty much just standing in the sun. So you see the flat horizon, you see the sun right on the horizon, and then the silhouette of him. And that's the shot from Apocalypse Now. It's the shot from Star Wars, where he's got the two suns, and it is almost the American zoetrope signature piece. And then credits.
I'd like to add here that this isn't where the movie ends, it's where the movie stops.
Yeah.
There's a very big difference.
Yeah. No, you bang on the money.
And this has been a bit of a complaint that we've noticed through a lot of these movies, that they sort of...
Yep. Nothing. We see the ending, but we don't see the result.
Yes.
And I don't know whether we could see the result. Because what would that result be? I'm convinced he was dead in 4 or 5 days.
There's more monkeys. He was already attacked by monkeys in the tunnel.
Yeah,
There'll just be more of those out there.
Absolutely.
After death.
He was dead. What it was a good example, what it was a good opportunity for, though, is to see a sunset actually in real time, because the movie didn't freeze. When the credits started rolling on the right-hand side, it kept the thing going, and you can see the sun actually coming down.
It's a nice shot.
It's an incredible shot.
Took them a while to get. They were down at the beach for several days trying to get that one shot.
Yeah, it was good.
Then the other thing, of course, is that the bad guys give up, which it's just like deflates all of the tension out of it. It's like chasing, smashing through things, crashing motorcycle.
No, I love that. That was good, because that shows you're 6% of a budget, 5% would have been good, but now you're almost... No, you can't grab him anymore. You're within 2 meters away from him. You can't grab him. You got to turn back now because budget.
Okay.
That says something about that world, so I like that.
Okay, so perhaps from a narrative perspective, but from a tension perspective, it's like, excitement. It's like, yeah.
So,
yeah.
How did you feel at that moment? Like when the credits started rolling, when the film finished there, where was your head? Where was your headspace?
My headspace was, I've done my due diligence. I've sat through it.
And that's how I felt as well. I felt like if I didn't have an alternative or ulterior motive for watching this film, I would have been angry. I really would have been angry, because there's hype, there's history, there's a connection to something that I've got a personal connection to, which is the Star Wars universe and the Indiana Jones and a lot of other stuff that came out of Lucas. I see, and I said this to Tom the other day, I can see why they gave him American Graffiti off the back of this film. I get it. Like, he's a craftsman.
There's beautiful shots.
He's a technical craftsman.
Fantastic
he understood
compositions.
And I think a lot of that composition stuff, and this is where we have to give credit where it's due. He shot this film with Francis Ford Coppola there. He was the producer of this film. Right, and a lot of the photos that I went through today had Ford Coppola looking down the barrel of the camera, and Lucas is an editor. That's his bread and butter. He's an editor that also learnt, lighting and cameras and whatever, but and direction and narrative and all this other stuff. But his technical trade is an editor. His wife was one of the editors on the original Star Wars, and I look at this and I say, well, how much of that experimentation was Lucas and how much was Coppola, who had already he was sort of playing both fields, Coppola at the time. He was doing the experiment stuff, through his own production house, but he was also doing studio movies. He was still making studio movies because that's how he started his production house, was with studio movie money. And I think it was vicariously through Lucas, he was able to do some of this experimentation and get a bit wild with it. Lucas took it and well run with it later
It's like a technical portfolio or training piece.
Yeah.
You know, a training exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
what
mate.
I think you're describing.
You turn everything down and put on a 90-minute soundtrack of classical music, electronica, psytrance, whatever you want to do, and watch it that way, I reckon it'd be a different experience. If I didn't have to try to make sense of it, I reckon it'd be a pretty stunning thing to watch. It's got some great thing like this sort of stuff, the silver-faced featureless-faced robots, the the leather, the motorbike boots, and just the look of it, the big white voids and all that sort of stuff. To me, it felt like a music video.
I think the thing that I took away from it, I suppose, is the themes. That dystopian future, the Big Brother, the sort of culture gone crazy.
But that's not Lucas's idea. The script comes from Mr. Munch.
Yeah,
Munch.
yeah.
This is not so. When he did the student film, he was just looking for a project to do as his graduation project, and the other scriptwriter on the film was a study mate at USC, and so Lucas read their script and said, "Oh, are you doing that? No, we're doing something else. Oh, do you mind if I take it? I've got some great ideas." Because he has the vision. Lucas has the visual. He wants to get the look, and so he is not a scriptwriter. He's not the ideas man. So, and when you see the student film, it is 15 minutes of
hard to watch
sound, and it doesn't make any sense.
Just running through concrete car parks.
It's just running through places, and mainly it's just the voiceover of people saying things and cutting in between stuff.
So all right, I haven't got much on budget, but I can sort of guess.
700,000.
Yeah,
it was 777,777.77 at some point when they were planning to shoot it in Japan.
Oh, really?
And they went over to Japan because they wanted to have the feel of the Japanese films that will just do what they want to do without giving you a reason. They just do the art, and they don't have to give you a backstory. And the scenery, and they got the permits. It was very hard to get permits to shoot stuff, but they got a budget, and the budget at that time was 777,777. But then they didn't have enough money to get actually the crew over there to actually film the thing.
There's great production management going on there.
He rewrote the script.
We spent 700 grand getting to Japan and back.
What I loved about the thing was I was amazed at the locations. I think
so
either they
too.
had a fantastic budget or they found some fantastic locations to film, and it was the latter. At the time, when I watched it, I didn't know.
That oval-shaped sort of building with the walkways and it looked almost like a shopping mall. And
there was a shopping mall. There was a nuclear power plant that they filmed in. There was,
there was a tunnel,
tunnels, unfinished tunnels,
being built or something.
Yeah. And he rewrote the script when they Walter Musch. He's the actual original scriptwriter. So. Lucas rewrote the script when he realized that he couldn't do it in Japan, and then he went and found the locations around San Francisco, and then made the script fit the locations.
Okay.
And watching the film, not knowing that, I was just generally amazed at all the aesthetics of the places that they filmed in.
I agree. Aesthetically and technically, it looked stunning.
Yeah.
It was just the art side of it that I think got in the road of it. And I see that we come across that quite often, in what we do, because we brush up against art a lot. Art with a capital A.
And the fact that he won, he came to Ford Coppola's attention because he won all these student prizes.
Yeah.
It's a student film, right?
Yeah.
And we have students. We know what students produce. So he doesn't necessarily have to be a fantastic filmmaker. He just has to be better than the other students.
That's right. It's relative to what's going on around you.
Yeah.
It grossed domestically 2,400,000. Nothing listed for worldwide gross. And so adjuster, if I put in my adjuster for 1971, that means it grossed 2,400,000 37 is no change whatsoever for some reason. Oh, no, hang on. Yeah, no. So that figure, hang on, I went the wrong way. So in 2017 dollars, 13 million.
Is the income or the budget?
That's what it grossed.
Wow,
It grossed 13 million.
that's not much.
No, it's not much at all. It's really not much.
But yeah, I mean, you see that film in when was it? 71.
71.
You go out the movies. Do you recommend to your mates to go see it?
No.
Yeah.
No. But, you know, there's a lot of creative, artistic types running around the west coast of USA. That's probably... And I think that's where this film really resides. It's a historical document of the early musings of somebody that became one of the most prolific filmmakers of our lifetime. But it in no way it keeps up with those films that, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of an advanced
massive
tech
film.
demo student film, I think.
He likes to stick pretty close. This is actually quite a departure from his comfort zone. Lucas likes to stick very closely to the things that he knows a lot about, right? So he gets a movie off the back of this called American Graffiti. Now, American Graffiti is quite literally people driving up and down a street in Modesto, California, where he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's filming it in the place he grew up. He's filming people doing exactly what he did when he grew up, which is drive up and down in Chevys and chop tops and things like that, and the main street on a Friday or Saturday night in Modesto, California, and all of the little conversations that people have in the back, in the cars and outside the cars and at the diners and at the whatever. He then rolls out of that and goes and does Star Wars, which is literally a Kurosawa sort of remake of a Buck Rogers. Did you guys see what was the Buck Rogers thing at the start of the film? Was that meant to be there?
That's right. Yeah,
Don't know why that was there.
Was it meant to be there? Because it was like a trailer for Buck Rogers in the 30s,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't know that didn't make any sense to me.
I have to find out if is that part of the film? Is that, I don't know. But yeah, Lucas tends to stick with the themes, and even going to Japan, like once again, he has this fascination with Japan. The only thing in this film where it's sticking to something that he seems to have a fascination with is little people. He loves to put little wee men in his film.
Oh, he's the only guy who has hair is actually showing up in the prison.
That's true.
That's right. There's one guy who's got hair who was from... Where was he? He was from the outside.
Yeah, it was from the edge of the dome or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. The Savages.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, so what would you give it?
Out of buy, rent...
Burn, bludgeon...
I wouldn't buy it and I wouldn't rent it, so I'm only left with burning it.
But you can bludgeon.
Yeah, but only if I need to, because I have to be on a Voyage of the Geek podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there another B word?
A lot of these, look, you become a fan of something, right? Musician, you think of your favorite band, and then you want to go back.
Yeah.
You want to go back into their early days. What were they like? What were the Beatles like when they were still playing in cellars?
Yeah.
You want, and that's the only reason this film still swims around in books. It's not because it's fantastic. It's simply because the guy made Star Wars, and people bring up these old films because he's bloody made Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's like a research thing, you do it for research purposes.
And it's exclusivity again. It's quite literally exclusivity. You want to be able to say, so you've seen it, THX?
Yeah.
Oh, you haven't?
Oh, you haven't seen it?
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Well, you're missing out on some pathos there, I'm afraid. So.
You haven't really seen Paris until you've been there in the fall.
Yeah, already the title is mysterious. THX 1138.
Yes.
What does it mean?
Yes. And you think it means something profound, but it's...
Bye.
Telephone
I like
number.
the thing, the robot Jesus, when he says, bye, bye. It's like saying goodbye, but he's not. He's like, purchase.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. So I think on that alone, I'll revise mine to rent. I will rent.
Yeah, I'm in the bludge research zone.
Yeah.
I would have to, for the first time ever, I would
Trivia.
have to say burn. Not because I dislike the film, but because of that's the rating system you offer me. You offer me buy,
You can
bludge.
think of any other B word that you can come up with. That's the rule.
Beware.
Bludge,
Yeah,
Beware.
beware.
Bludgeon's close to bludgeon.
Yes, it is very close to bludgeon.
Well, let's put it into this term then. Would you recommend it to just your average Joe or
on what
audience?
grounds? I would have to think. On what grounds
No.
would I recommend it? Why would I? What?
No.
Maybe if there's a
And
student,
if you say no, why not?
if there's a student of sound
What's your
design,
main reason why you wouldn't recommend this?
come to me. And if you're into sound design and you like weird sound effects,
Yeah.
then yeah, that among many other films of the 70s.
Yeah.
But
You
otherwise,
only recommend popcorn movies where somebody's going to come back at you and say, that was fucking amazing.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
saw that thing where he did that thing with a thing.
Yeah.
You know, this isn't like that. You know, you'd only recommend it if it's like, you know, I don't really feel like watching something weird and slightly boring and horribly confusing. And
Yeah.
it's like, I've got a movie for you.
Yeah. And if you take his name away from it, like if he has no association with the film, there's no value in the film. Is that fair?
I wouldn't say no value, but
no,
yeah,
not no
it's
value, because there is a story that he tries to tell.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell it very clearly. There are some good camera. There is beauty in that film.
Yeah.
There's some good things to look at and get inspired by, but then there are so many other films to choose from. So
Yeah.
it's not a standout movie,
Yeah.
which is why I wouldn't recommend it.
I think there are some good Orson Welles-y resonating thematic features to it that are a little bit unique.
But then you can just
The-
watch an Orson Welles movie instead.
Or The Matrix, and you kind of get the
Yeah.
same sort of
I
vibe.
got a bit of a Matrix vibe from it. A little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for another one. We're going to try to take a look in one of our upcoming shows at the new
Voyage.
no.
Fantastic Voyage.
The
That'd be a good film to go look at
what's
one
the
day.
Besson movie?
Oh, Valerian.
Valerian.
Valerian. Okay.
So we're going to try to change it up a little bit with something that's current, but also we're going to
to
move
the
away.
future.
We'll try and move away from, for at least in the next couple of shows, we'll try and move away from that 70s experimental film because we've done two in a row and my brain hurts.
I need some popcorn.
Yeah, and I need to bring back the sense of looking forward to watching the film, and
You guys
I
did
lost that.
a show earlier this year where you went through all the trailers and the things to look forward in 2017. This is
yeah.
a few, like 10 shows back.
Mm.
Wonder if it's worth seeing all those films and then
yes,
doing a
yes.
review at the end of the year.
That's not a bad idea.
Talk
a
about
good
Wonder
idea.
Woman, talk about
Yes.
all the stuff that came out.
And we really should maybe do a show on Wonder Woman because it's potentially a turning point for DC films. It depends. Depends if they've seen the error of their ways and they get rid of this pillock that they keep rolling out to do. He did the Batman Superman and he was the executive producer or something on the Suicide Squad and
Yeah.
I think he did half of the and I'm going to tread gently. He's had a tragic loss. I think his daughter died, and he was the director of Justice League, and removed himself from the film. And now Joss Whedon is finishing Justice League.
That's good news.
That's what I thought at
sounds
the
good.
time as well. I wasn't sure whether that was politically correct to feel good about the fact that the director had to leave because he's had that tragic loss. But at the same time, you can't help but recognise that. I mean, Joss Whedon
Might be a
knows how
good
to
step forward.
make a good film. But
Depends
yes,
on how late he gets into it and how much he can salvage.
yeah, we'll try and take it in a couple of different directions moving forward. Anything exciting coming up for you, gentlemen? I'm still forging my way forward in the world of VR and architectural visualization and seeing what's going on in that world at the moment. Some great stuff, some really interesting stuff going on in that. V-Ray for Unreal 3, which doesn't mean much to many people, but it's very exciting for me.
Interesting.
V-Ray's my bag, baby.
My most exciting thing is that I will get to bed early tonight. I had about 10 days of staying up till a minute after midnight every day because I had to make bookings for an island where the campsites become available at 1 minute past midnight, and you have to get in there.
Wow.
But you can only book a year, 11 months in advance precisely. So if you want to go for 2 weeks, you got to stay up 2 weeks till 1 minute past midnight and book the site for the day.
Wow.
And I'm through with that, so I can go to bed at like 10 tonight.
So you got your booking though?
Yeah, got all that done.
Where's that at?
And this is Barrier Reef.
Oh, nice. What is it on an island up there or something?
Yeah. Lady Musgrave Island.
Musgrave.
Mm.
Very nice.
Sporty Spots. If you want one, let me know.
No, because you're going to be doing that crazy shit, putting tanks on your back and going under.
Not everyone does. There's
Yeah,
Sporty
not this
Spots.
duck, mate.
There's going to be hammocks and trees. There's going to be sun on your belly. There's going to be drinks. There's going to be
How do the drinks get to you? That's important.
That depends on how well you connected you are.
Okay.
If you're connected enough, you have somebody who actually has a solar powered ice maker.
You're saying words that are sending me the other direction. Like, I've done the bare boating skipper or clipper around the Whitsundays and stuff and got back and needed a holiday because it was work.
Oh, yeah.
It was work.
Yeah.
So how the drink gets to you on the holiday, right? Not where you sit. Right?
No,
It's okay to sit on a hammock on a beach, but if you got to lug everything 4.5 kilometres or something like that.
Some holidays are traveling, right?
Yeah.
You go in the bus and you go to some city, you go somewhere. So the entire holidays are just work, and traveling around sitting in cars. This one is purely like it's bracketed on the left and the right, obviously. With lots of travel, you got to get yourself up there. You got to get to the island in rough seas. You got to set up the tent, everything.
Yeah.
But once you set up, for 2 weeks, there is absolutely nothing to do. You can
So
snorkel.
survivor with beer and food.
With beer and food,
Beautiful.
and usually more food than you can throw a stick at.
Sounds
So
pretty
there's
good.
you have to overcater because you never know if you get stuck. If the weather turns bad, they can't pick you up.
Yeah.
You're away from mobile phone coverage.
Yeah.
There's no electricity. There is no light. There is no other than the torches that you bring. So you're really isolated, and you just
Sounds
chill.
pretty good.
You just chill. You don't have to even go
pretty good.
diving.
It's a beautiful part of the world. All right, gentlemen. Thank you for another awesome look at some of the cinema that was. And we'll see everybody next time. Until next time, it's bye for me.
Bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.